Well, I think, according to what my mother told me, the church was started, maybe they organized the church over in the old schoolhouse sitting out there, which is that old barn there at the Marvin place. That was the first church. It was right there in that old field below the cemetery. And the girls, it was Mama, Emma Smith, Cora McDuffie, Janie Rice, and others, girls in the neighborhood of that age, their ages. According to what she told me, it must have been when she was about 16 years old. And if she was 16 years ago, the church was built in about 95. That's the way I figured it out, the best I could tell with what she told me. Nobody remembered what year it was built. And them girls walked from up here to White Oak Swamp and worked on the farm, chopping cotton or corn or whatever to make money and give every dime they made to the church to help build the church. And in the meantime, the old man Jessup, he had told Cousin Bill Simmons to pick out such lumber. He was sawing for him. Pick out just such lumber as they wanted for the church, and it was hard, and the sills are hewn out. You know that, the original, the sanctuary are hewn sills, maybe 10 by 12 or 12 by 12. I don't remember which.
You think maybe Grandpa Ed Rice might have hewed them sills?
Oh man, Ed Davis probably. Oh man, Ed Davis probably hewn them sills, because they'd take him. They said he could split a pencil mark open with a broadaxe. They would, what they call scoring. They'd blackline it on a log and cut the tree down, and they'd stretch a black line on a chalk line, we call it now. And then the other fellows, they would score it down within about, say, half an inch of the mark. And the old man Ed Davis would come along with the broadaxe, and he'd hew it to the mark.
Let me ask you something. You said Mr. Jessup. What Jessup was that?
Mr. Jim Jessup. He was brother to Mr. Daddy to Mr. Daff and Mr. Emmett.
That was at the old water mill.
The old water mill, and it's interesting to think about, but I think that lumber was sawn at the water mill. He had a water sawmill there. It was pulled by water, flutter wheel. And I think that's the way it was sawn. It was with water, by water power.
And that's where they got the lumber to build the church.
That's where they got the lumber to frame and weatherboard it. There was, for years before it was ever sealed. And it was hard. It was hard. And Cousin Bill Simmons told me, he said, I don't believe there's a half inch of sap showing in that weatherboard in there. And it showed it whenever we went to build that front porch on there. You could look at the weatherboard and see that they put the sap corner. If they found the one with the edge had some sap on it, they'd put the edge where the sap was under the lap. And the top board would cover the sap, and you could see it. I noticed it. I remembered that. But you need to use that paw or something. I'll get tired. Yeah, they must have started the building around 1895. But it was organized in this old schoolhouse that we're talking about. And my Stephen Clifton was the first Sunday school superintendent, and possibly Calvin Beard was the first song leader. Said he was a great singer. And the preacher that I've heard most from back then was Jenkins, fellow Jenkins. That was he was a powerful man in the pulpit. And I know I've heard him talk about so many people being converted under his preacher. And he preached sanctification in its fullness. But the ones that helped build it, if I can remember, I possibly can't remember all of them, but it would be Amos and Dan and Stacy Smith and R.J. McDuffie, Addie McDuffie, I don't know, Uncle Charlie Edge might have had some help in that, Uncle Ian, and Uncle Bernice and Hector Ray. I know while they were building the building, Uncle Bernice, he liked to kind of keep books and keep up with what he was doing, and it was free labor. So Uncle Bernice, he suggested one day that they keep up with what they're doing. Everybody keep up with their time so that when they got the building up, they could then tell about what it cost to build a church. And one of the leaders spoke up and said, no, if we can't do it free, just don't help at all. We don't want your time. So Grandpa Ray, Ashford Ray, he offered lumber to be cut out of the choice trees in his woods to build the church. I believe I stated that before. But he said that the leader in building the church said, no, he drank whiskey and they didn't want his lumber. So I don't know. No man Stephen Clifton, I believe I quoted that he was the first Sunday school superintendent. I don't know how long he was Sunday school superintendent, but whenever they changed and got another, that old man Amos Smith was put in the Sunday school superintendent, and old man Stephen, I've heard said that he said one day, he said he believed that Amos was about as good a superintendent as he was, although he couldn't illustrate as good as he could. No, they had a time building that church. I overlooked the builders that helped build the church, some of them, and one of the main ones was William Simmons. Bill, he's known as Bill Simmons, and Ellie McDuffie, and Lee Everett, and I can't think of anyone else. Well, Jim Fairclough probably helped in building the church one way or another. I don't know hardly how it come along, but those folks, old man Stephen, when he was Sunday school superintendent, he walked from halfway to White Oak. It was about a 4-mile walk to come to church. Folks down on White Oak Swamp composed right much of the church. I remember some more now that possibly helped build the church, which was Uncle Ed and Uncle Tom Rice, and possibly Johnny, because we went several years before the church was ever sealed. Johnny Rice was a great church worker. He died as a young man. He got hurt. Both legs broke at a sawmill at the same time, and taken pneumonia and died. And that must have been in the about the 1920, something like that. He got busy, and they got, I don't know how they purchased, don't know how they got the lumber, don't know where they got the lumber. But Foster Simmons had a planer up at his daddy's house, and he hauled that lumber up there, and Foster dressed it and made sealing to seal the church. Now, during this time that it was not sealed, the people sit there and they spit right funny to think about that. People, they use this nut, chewed their tobacco, preacher and all, and they spit whichever way the spitter was directed. And I remember myself that when they had the signs up in the church, on the women's side, they had a sign up there that said, "Please don't spit on the floor." And on the men's side, said, "Don't spit on the floor." Back then, the men and women didn't sit together in the church. It was one on one side, one on the other. But Johnny got the lumber, so to seal the church. I'm about to slip over something. Whenever they were chewing their tobacco, they just spit right down, and one that was mostly that chewed tobacco, you tried to get next to the wall where you could spit right down on the seal. The one that hadn't rotted the seal was tobacco spit. But Johnny got the lumber, and got it dressed, and Cousin Olivia's Edge, taking his time, he was living in this community at that time, and he sealed that entire church. I think I'm sure I helped him some myself as a boy, just a boy. I helped him do right much of that work. He sealed the church. And then he wanted to do a little something else to it, which the church was perfectly square. At that time, the pulpit was up in the church side of the church is 24 by 36 feet. And the pulpit was on the inside of that. So he wanted a little, they call it a recess, a little triangle thing out for the preacher to stand in, move the pulpit back, and he built that. Which he done a lot of work at the church at that time. I can't recall anything else right now.